Hey everyone, welcome back to Countdown to Infinity, the show whose name makes less and less sense the further we get from the, actual concept of the show. Anyways, I'm James, and I'm joined by Matt. Hey Matt, how's it going?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
I'm only going to say Spider-Man in different inflections for the rest of this episode.
This is going to be a short episode.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
We're here to talk about Spider-Man.
Really?
I
thought we were here to talk about Captain Marvel.
Oh, we should talk about Captain Marvel. That was a good movie.
It was a good
I
movie.
want to watch. I need to watch it again, actually.
Yeah.
So this is the first movie we've got since Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
It is currently the last confirmed movie we know about.
Mm-hmm.
We have days, but we don't have anything other than that until July 20th at around like 4 o'clock in the afternoon our time is when Marvel takes the stage at Comic-Con.
I was under the impression they weren't coming to Comic-Con this year.
No, 4:30 p.m. Stage 8, Hall H.
Are you sure about that? Because I'm pretty sure I saw a press release that said they weren't.
Marvel at Comic-Con. Marvel Studios joins Comic-Con International. Yeah.
Oh.
No.
All right.
Hall H.
Cool. Neat.
5:15 till 6:45. Saturday, July 20th in the famed Hall H, which you and I have been there.
We have. I believe we saw Kevin Smith.
We saw Kevin Smith. We saw what was the movie that we saw? Shoot 'em Up. We saw like a sneak peek to Shoot 'em Up there.
Did we really?
Yeah, because what's his name was there too?
I don't remember.
Who was in
that.
Shoot 'em Up?
It was what's his name? It's not Colin Farrell. He's the other guy whose name.
No, that's right, isn't it? Isn't it Colin Farrell?
No, it's the other one.
Clive Owen.
Clive Owen. Yeah, that's
yeah. It was a panel with Michael Davis, who was the director, and Clive Owen. And I remember we got to see like early footage and like the first trailer.
I super don't remember any of that.
Really? Yeah, we saw it because that was prior, because we got in line super early so that we could see Kevin Smith.
Oh, right.
But because we got it, because they didn't have back then, I think they do now, but back then you could just, once you were in, you were in.
Yeah, they didn't clear the hall.
Yeah. So I think they do now, but back then they didn't clear the hall, and we all wanted to see Kevin Smith. It was like, this is 2007, so I don't know if I'd necessarily line up for hours and hours and hours to see Kevin Smith now in my life. But in 2007 I did.
Yeah.
And I was happy I did. It was fun.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what's happening. So until then, we don't actually know what's happening. There have been a lot of guesses and stuff, but that's for other people to discuss.
Yeah.
Today we're here to talk about Spider-Man's Far From Homes, which I liked a lot.
Oh, you're jumping ahead.
Did you like it? I mean, we always say if we like it or not. It's also just sort of like a completely pointless conversation because
of course I liked it.
I have moved past the idea that I'm ever going to dislike a Marvel movie. Like, I'm so far beyond the concept of not walking out of a theater after seeing an MCU flick and not just being like, that was fun.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yep.
I went in and I went in and I came out more happy than I went in.
Yes.
And that's literally all I want out of these movies.
Yes.
I want to feel good about my life, and these do a good job. But anyways,
yeah.
This is a movie that is well, let's go down some of this cool stuff. Directed John Watts.
Yeah.
Back.
Yeah.
Who directed the first one. Starring some guy named Tom Holland.
Who's he? Never heard of him.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
Zenyatta.
I don't think that's how that's pronounced.
Nope. That's a Overwatch character. I meant Zendaya.
Mm-hmm.
That was a joke, by the way. I do know how to say
You're
Zendaya's
hilarious.
name. I thought I would make a funny joke. Kobe Smothers was in there. Jon Favreau's in there. JB Smoove, who's got just a great name.
It is a good name.
And Marissa Tomei. And some kid named Jake Gyllenhaal. Hal? I believe it's pronounced Jake Gyllenhaal.
I believe it is Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jakey Gyllenhaal. Got it.
Yeah,
Nailed it.
we're just comedy gold. We're just mining comedy gold out of this podcast
we're
this evening.
Distributed by Sony Pictures, which is still kind of weird.
A little bit.
It's really weird going in because I had forgot that you kind of forget sometimes. Like I obviously I knew in the back of my head that this was still Sony's deal and it's still a partnership and it's technically not 100% MCU or Marvel Studios. So when you sit there, like just for that like half a second, I was like, oh shit, are we in the wrong theater? This is oh wait, nope, never mind. Yeah, sorry.
The Columbia Pictures logo comes up and you're like, what?
Yeah, and you're like, wait, what? And then because they did the same thing, because normally with Marvel movies they run. Man, I'm gonna kick myself if I'm wrong about this, but normally the Marvel Studio intro rolls right off the start.
Yes. Like, it's not necessarily the first production logo in every situation, but normally with these movies, it precedes any element of the film, right?
Yeah.
Which they didn't do this time around.
Well, so they didn't do this time around, and because I went back and watched Homecoming last night. For no other reason than just I was bored in Netflix and I wanted to watch it. They did the same thing,
right?
Because that like the post Sony Columbia but pre MCU sets up the bad guy and all that jazz in that movie.
Right.
I kind of forgotten that, and that's the exact same thing they did here, right? Which was great. I loved it. It followed the very similar formula. So, but anyway, so we saw that it's done by Sony, but it's still MCU, and it's already made like a $577 million.
Yeah, it's amazing what releasing on a Tuesday will do to your first week box office, or your opening weekend box office rather.
Yeah, best Tuesday opening box office. That 577, I will say, is worldwide.
Yes.
But I think that. God, what does that make? What does that mean? That like, where's Marvel this year in terms of like money made?
$3 billion, $3.5.
It's absurd.
Because they're what? They're like 2.8 on the back of Avengers alone. Plus,
they're 2.772 on Avengers,
and then Captain Marvel. Did Captain Marvel break $1 billion?
Captain Marvel broke. Yeah, it went 1.1.
So they're almost coming up on $4 billion then. In fact, they're over $4 billion because if it was 1.1 and 2.7, that's 3.8 plus another half, almost like $6 billion. They're like $4.5 billion just across three movies.
It's like completely within the realm of reality that these three films this year from box office takes will top $5 billion.
Yeah.
Which is absurd.
Yeah.
Like that. Ugh.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. That makes me, I mean, angry but happy.
Yeah. I mean, these are a money-making machine.
Yeah. I was going to say I wish I was making money off them, but we do a podcast and technically there's ad revenue there. So I guess I can't say that we're not making no money.
Yes,
but it's not $5 billion.
1/10 of 1/10 of 1/10 of 1/10 of 1/10 of 1/10 of 1% of what these movies are making. Yeah.
Yeah. That's fair though. All right. Well, enough screwing around. What was this? What's this movie about, Matt?
Okay, so Peter Parker's going on vacation. He's
sounds nice.
Yeah,
I'd love to go on vacation.
I know, right? So anyhow, it's after the snap. Avengers Endgame has taken place.
It's called the blip, sir.
Well, no, the snap was the snap. The blip was the period during which everybody was gone, and then they came back. That was the blip.
Or was the blip when everybody came back?
I think they blipped back was sort of how I read it. But like I would call the blip the period in which they were not present.
Oh, sure.
he blipped, so he's not 16, or he's 16, not 21. Anyhow, so Peter Parker's going on vacation. He's dealing with some heavy stuff. The death of Iron Man. Spoilers, by the way, if you haven't watched Endgame. The death of Tony is hanging on him pretty heavily. He's working with Aunt May, doing some outreach to help Sally Ann, and he gets a bunch of questions about what it's going to be like to be the next Iron Man, which freaks him out a little bit. But he, having returned to school after having been blipped out for 5 years, is going on a school trip, so he's going to leave his spider suit behind and go on a trip around Europe and tell MJ how he really feels. And he's got a whole plan to do it. And then the world conspires to prevent that from happening. This is basically what the movie is about. Aunt May packs his suit for him. He does go to Europe. He finds out from Happy Hogan that Nick Fury is trying to get his attention, but he sends Nick Fury to voicemail and is like, I'll deal with it when I come back. Then Nick Fury catches up with him in Europe and in Venice, and lets him know that, hey, there are these elementals that are attacking the world. There are various elemental creatures based on the 4 primal elements of earth, water, air, and fire, and they have been appearing in different places. But lo and behold, this mysterious man who comes to be known as Mysterio has appeared, and he claims to be from another Earth. He claims that this world is Earth 616, but he is from Earth 833, and the snap actually tore a hole in reality and opened pathways to other dimensions. And he's here to stop these elementals from, destroying the entire planet and rendering it inhospitable to all human life. Additionally, as a part of all this, Nick Fury bestows upon Peter the Edith glasses, which is an artificial intelligence and defense network system that Tony has built that he has bequeathed to Peter so that Peter can take his place. And basically, it's a networked satellite full of defense drones and orbital weapons and all that kind of jazz. So Pete now is getting even more freaked out about the amount of weight being placed on his shoulders. He just wants to have fun in Europe and hang out with the girl he likes. And he has now been sort of recruited into this fight against this Earth-destroying threat that he didn't want anything to do with. So he tries to help out in Venice, and it doesn't go super well. The class trip then moves on. They go to Prague. On his way to Prague, he gets busted by his romantic competition in a transaction with one of Fury's agents, who's trying to give him a new suit so that he won't be found out as Spider-Man in Europe. And it makes it look like he's got his pants down and he's hooking up with some random European chick. So I cannot remember the name of this dude, but anyhow, he's like, I'm going to tell MJ, you're a creepy weirdo, Peter. I'm going to tell MJ. So that doesn't go very well. Peter then inadvertently mobilizes Edith to murder him, and has to stop that from taking place. This then, when they get to Prague, leads to another standoff with another of the elementals. Fury has it out with Peter over the fact that he just tried to accidentally kill one of his classmates, and so he's not ready to bear the weight of responsibility that Iron Man had. And with all this having gone not really Peter's way, Peter succumbs to the weight that is on his shoulders and offers Mysterio the Edith glasses. And is like, you know what? The message from Iron Man said not that I am being trusted to be the next Iron Man, but that I am being trusted to choose the next Iron Man. This is totally what Tony would want. You're way more experienced in this superheroing thing than I am, so you should have it. You should be the new lead Avenger. So here, I'm transferring Edith's control to you. And then he heads off to go spend the rest of his vacation with his class. At this point, it is revealed that, in fact, Quentin Beck, Mysterio, is a disgruntled former Stark employee who has mobilized a bunch of other disgruntled Stark employees to use these defense drones to create false threats against the world in order to earn the trust of Nick Fury and Spider-Man in order to get the Edith glasses so that they can be either the world's greatest heroes or villains. It's not entirely clear. Basically, they want to be false. They want to be adulated as heroes by installing themselves as the leaders of the world. And they're gonna murder a lot of people along the way to doing that. So they stage an attack on. Oh well, at this point, their plan is coming to fruition. But it turns out that in the final attack in Prague, MJ has now found one of the projectors off the drone that broke off one of the drones that they were using to simulate this attack in Prague. She shows it to Peter. And Peter realizes that he is that Mysterio is faking these attacks, and suddenly realizes that, oh geez, I've made a huge mistake. I gave the Edith glasses to him. In the process, MJ deduces that Peter is Spider-Man. Peter initially refuses that, but upon realizing the mistake he's made is like, no, actually, I am Spider-Man, and I've made a huge mistake. I need your help right now. So Beck learns of this, decides that he has to just murder everybody at this point. Nick Fury's got to die. Spider-Man's got to die. All of Spider-Man's classmates have got to die. Anyone who knows what they are up to or has the evidence in hand has got to die. So he stages a new attack on London and manages to finagle the students' class into London as well, and basically tries to stage a hit on everybody. This leads to Peter. Peter gets his butt kicked in Berlin by Mysterio having sort of simulated another situation that Pete couldn't get his way or couldn't figure out how to resolve. Pete gets hit by a train and carried off to the Netherlands. And sort of limps his way back to Happy, who gives him a good pep talk and gets him back in the game and carries him back on a jet to London while Spidey builds a new suit and sort of finds his confidence again. Then the big grand attack happens in London. The third act action set piece takes place as a big fusion elemental attacks London. Spider-Man comes in, saves the day, fights all of the drones, lines up against, squares off against Mysterio, who initiates another simulated AR simulation to try and disorient him, at which point Spider-Man knuckles down and puts faith in his spider sense, or Peter Tingle, and actually has one of the coolest action scenes in any of these movies to date, as he just completely dismantles all these drones by sensing where they are. He then manages to defeat Beck. Beck gets hit by a stray bullet from one of the drones and dies. And this also allows the kids in Peter's class who are under threat to escape unharmed as well. That's basically the whole movie. He saves the day, manages to catch up with his classmates. He does confess how he feels to MJ, and it turns out that MJ feels the same way, and they smooch on the Tower Bridge, and that's basically it. And then he goes home. And
Hooray!
And it turns out that Flash's mom couldn't even show up to pick him up from the airport, and that was actually one of the saddest things I've seen in one of these movies.
You got any theories on that, by the way?
On Flash's mom?
On what they're hinting at with Flash? Because people are thinking that he could sort of be the fill-in for Harry in these movies.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see it.
Which could be kind of interesting. Because they haven't introduced, the Harry Osborn, counter.
Yeah.
Or person in this at all.
Yeah.
And they've already taken the sort of the traditional concept of MJ and twisted it about in a very good way, mind you. I love what they're doing with that character in these movies. So I could see it. I could see that turning into something later down the road. My only concern there is just Flash has more or less just been used as sort of like, comedic relief.
Yeah.
And he's just a guy who thinks, Peter's a dick, but Spider-Man is the best. And isn't it kind of funny that he thinks that? And
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like they would need to do something pretty interesting to make that work in a future movie. But anyways, we're getting much far ahead of ourselves.
Like, I seem to recall in the comics that later on in their, like, in college, Peter and Flash kind of hit it off anyhow and become friendly. Mm-hmm. Like, he doesn't really have to become Harry Osborn for that. They can just, like, he can just grow out of being a dick.
Yeah. That's fair. All right, so we'll rewind and go back to the very start of the movie.
Okay.
And it starts with a couple scenes. The first being the high school news.
Oh my God.
Scene where they paid tribute to the fallen Avengers and talk about how it's been like 8 months, I think is what they said.
Yes.
Since everybody blipped back. And so there's that conversation, and that small amount of context, and then there is the scene with Aunt May, and they're doing the fundraiser to raise money for people who have been displaced by the blip. And was that enough? Was that, considering that I would be willing to bet that this is about as much payoff or as much of a deep dive into the effects of the blip has. Was that enough for you? Were you satisfied with that?
I mean, between what we saw in Endgame and that, I'm willing to accept it. There's still a lot of loose ends, right? Like, Aunt May's story of when she blipped back in and, like, another family was living in her apartment, and like the wife thought she was a mistress, and so on. That opens up a whole series of there's a whole series of economic questions associated with this, because if you die and you have no next of kin, so like Aunt May and Peter die, that like all of their worldly possessions
are gone.
They have no bank accounts. They have no money. They have, like, we can assume that through Tony's wealth, they have been put back on their feet, right? Like, I think that's sort of the assumption you have to go with there, where like, Happy probably probably, I guess, Pepper still has money, and like she would have inherited all of Tony's wealth. And like Happy is still obviously employed through Stark Industries in some way, because he shows up with a giant check from like Pepper at the beginning of the movie. And one assumes that through the relationship between like Peter and Tony that she at least got them back on their feet. So like, sure. But when half the world goes through this, like, that's some big problems, right? And they do kind of hand wave that. But it's like nothing they hand wave is so far out of being explainable that it's a problem. Like, you can sort of make a simple leap to everything.
I mean, I guess yes and no, in my opinion. Like, the fact is that this is so far, like, the concept of 3.5 billion people going away in an instant and then all coming back 5 years later, in reality, it would take decades.
Oh yeah, it would be cataclysmic
to recover from. Yeah, it would take decades to recover from something like that. But yet, 8 months later, after everyone's back, let's go on a vacation to Venice and Prague,
which
and
look
London,
no different from how they
exactly as they should look if nothing happened at all.
Yeah.
And I just like it, and so I want to say that I don't care. Because getting hung up on that is the literal wrong thing to do in the context of the MCU.
Right.
Right? That's not what this is about. Would I watch an HBO series about what happens after everybody comes back and it wasn't, the MCU? Yeah, probably. I think that'd be kind of neat. Like, I would enjoy exploring what that recovery system looks like.
Mm-hmm.
But in the situation of the MCU and moving forward, you just kind of have, and this is sort of me saying it for the sake of anybody out there who's hung up on it.
Yeah. Story, not lore.
Yeah, if you can just move past it, you just got to move past it, because it is so unbelievably huge that you can't dive into it in a way that's going to satisfy you, because you will not be satisfied.
Yeah. And it's like they gave us exactly enough to serve the story that they wanted to tell, and nothing more than that. And the rest of it is just left in the background, and that's perfectly fine. Like, they don't need to lay all that groundwork.
No, not at all. And something that it does, which I haven't seen a lot of people talk about, but also we're never going to see, what that means, at least not yet. I'll be curious, I suppose. But it puts literally every human being, because it's just like everything that's happened over the years in this universe, especially when you think about like New York in the first Avengers was like one of the big unavoidable, now everybody on the planet knows that there's something beyond us. Right. But once the snap and the blip happens, now not only does everybody know there's something beyond us, but now everybody's been affected by it.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's easy for somebody in Europe to poo-poo New York and say, oh, that was on the other side of the world. Where when you start talking about the blip, now you're talking about something that has literally, there is zero, like there is not a chance. I mean, maybe there's a small chance, but there's a very small chance that this has affected every single human being on the planet, which is kind of cool when you think about it, because now everybody understands the universe that they actually occupy, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to think that will have implications further down the road. But who knows? I guess we'll have to find out.
Yeah.
So there was that.
Mm-hmm.
The other big thing, obviously, with this film is the way in which I don't think any other Marvel movie has sort of done it before, where they finally picked a character from the history of Marvel that I knew going in was a bad guy, and you knew going in was a bad guy, and I'm guessing that a good chunk of the people listening knew were a bad guy, but I'm also going to guess that some of you didn't, right? I'm going to guess that some of you didn't know that Mysterio was going to be the bad guy, because they were able to market it in such a way that you see these elementals, big water elementals and the sand elemental and the fire elemental, smashing the crap out of these big European cities, and you assume, okay, those are the bad guys. And they're selling me that Jake Gyllenhaal, who is a great actor and sort of universally liked as a human outside of acting, is playing a new superhero.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was super cool. And I definitely made sure not to mention it. Like, even, Ashley, my wife, she loves these movies. It's a huge part of her relationship are these movies, but she wasn't a comic book fan beforehand, so she didn't know. She figured it out pretty quick throughout the movie. Like, she leaned over to me during the movie and was like, he's the bad guy, before it was revealed he's the bad guy. Because I was just like, yes, that's great. I loved it.
Yep.
I thought that was super cool that, they got to do something like that.
Yeah.
Because that's not something we've seen before.
So going off of that, I love that they even found a way to do it that left people like me and probably you, who do know Mysterio's past as a villain, like, they left it open. They left it as something you could wonder about, right? Like, we both came in pretty strongly expecting him to, like, there's going to be a villain turn. He's a con man. Like, Quentin Beck is a con man. He is using special effects of some kind to orchestrate this plan. But they open it up with like, oh, he's already got Nick Fury on board, and
Yeah.
he's from another Earth, and they've already established the idea of like a multiverse possibly existing in this world. And like playing off the multiverse idea was really inspired on the part of the writers, I think, because having just done Endgame, where it's like, oh yeah, multiple universes through multiple timelines do exist, meant that you come into this and he's like, oh yeah, I'm from another Earth, and you just want to be like, huh, maybe this is the good Mysterio from Earth 833, and he's actually a superhero, and they're just using this as a way to like throw us off our footing to introduce the multiverse. And then of course it turns out that he's a hack, but it's still really like, it ends up just still really being a satisfying turn, even if you expect it to be coming, because they introduce enough uncertainty along the way that it still feels like a surprise. And of course, Jake Gyllenhaal plays it so well. Yeah. The villain speech is just so good.
Yeah, I mean, I loved. I mean, even me, I'm not a tremendous huge comic book fan, but I knew his backstory, and I knew sort of like how he has worked in Marvel comics in the past. But I loved how they tied him into this universe.
Yeah.
I was just like, when he revealed that he and his group of people are disgruntled ex Tony Stark employees, and he's the one who created Barf, and using that scene from, what movie is that from? Was that Iron Man?
That was Civil War.
That was Civil War. Yeah, right. That's during Civil War. And tying in all the other employees as well. Oh, it was so good. And it's just like, they haven't been planning that since Civil War.
No.
I doubt. It's just, it's just smart, creative, fun writing, being like, okay, how can we... It's like, okay, he's a master, he's a manipulator, he's a con man, he uses special effects. Okay, how can we tie this back? And I just thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
I was like smiling, grin, like ear to ear grin.
Yep.
When they revealed how he tied into the universe along with his crew.
Yeah.
I thought was just phenomenal. And yeah, the speech during, it's like when they yelled at him to do the speech and he gave the speech, and I was just like, this is perfect. This is so good. I love it.
His laugh when he gets the glasses and Pete walks out the door and they're like all holding their breath for a moment as the illusion comes down. Yeah. And then he just starts to laugh and it's like, well, that was easy. That his delivery of that line is just spectacular. It's just so, like, it just is such a satisfying scene. I love the whole thing. It's so good. Speaking to the integration of it with those other movies, though, this comes back to, like, I was sort of thinking about it earlier when you were talking about how this is it's a Columbia Pictures and a Sony movie. It's not really MCU, but this one is like so tied in, like more so than almost any other MCU movie, tied in, like, next to maybe Endgame, tied into like the lore and the history and the world of the MCU. It reads to me almost like Marvel is just trying to exert the MCU on Spider-Man as much as humanly possible, just so that it doesn't fit. Like, this is how they are exerting their control over this character in order to make sure that the only way these movies can continue to be made is as a part of the MCU.
Yes.
Like, they are... There's no other explanation other than just his popularity for why they would be, like, setting Peter up as the heir to Iron Man, right? Like, they are planning to build the entire next phase or more of this universe on the back of Peter Parker, and that character being owned by Sony Pictures is not going to stop them. So like it's interesting because like they keep teasing, it keeps going back and forth. It's like, well, Sony could use Spider-Man in Venom too if they want to. It's up to them. They can do it. And then they go and release a movie like this where it's just like it would be
Good luck.
so out of place.
Yeah, it would be.
The only way,
It would not work.
like the only way Sony could realistically do Spider-Man in Venom 2 is to create a new Spider-Man. They would have to cast somebody else and do a different Spider-Man and have like, here are the Venom movies with our Spider-Man in it, and it takes place in a different part of the multiverse. And then just let Tom Holland Spider-Man be in the MCU forever. Like, I cannot see how they could possibly cross those two universes over without it just making a hash of it.
Yeah, no, I don't think they could. I think if they were smart, they would just let MCU make Venom.
Well, yeah.
Just you like money because this is how you make money. Like, you guys clearly don't get it. They clearly do get it.
Yeah.
So you might as well make, the money that you can. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think everybody was like super excited about the idea of the multiverse becoming, a big aspect. And I mean, there's nothing to say that it wouldn't in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably like, I don't know, like somewhere somebody has had the conversation of, okay, how can we do Into the Spider-Verse in the MCU?
Oh, I'm sure.
Because I want to get Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, and hell, let's bring in the animated.
Yeah.
I would trust Marvel Studios to do that, bring in an animated character. I wouldn't. Please don't bring in Spider-Pig, but bring in everybody else. That would be.
Somebody go pull the old Japanese Spider-Man costume out of mothballs and dust off the leopardon like mecha suit, please. 'Cause that I would love to see it. It would be ridiculous, but I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, to a certain extent, I actually do kind of hope they leave the Spider-Verse stuff in the animated films. But there is, of course, always going to be that fanboy part of me that just wants to see the 3 film iterations of Spider-Man on screen fighting bad guys together. But I feel like it's a really good fit for the animation, and I am excited to see the new Spider-Verse movies that are being worked on when they ultimately do come out.
Yeah, that's fair. I think this movie had possibly one of my favorite scenes in a Marvel movie in a very long time.
Okay.
Which is the scene where Peter goes to Berlin to meet with what he assumes is Fury, only to realize that it was a massive illusion created by Beck.
Yeah.
And I just like it's kind of a hard scene to talk about. It is the definition of a visual scene, because that's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
But the sort of the rope, he just puts him through the ringer with this incredible illusion and this just unbelievable scene, and I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was just, I was just sort of sitting there just completely mouth open being like, this is absurd. How, like, good Lord, I want more of this, please. But no, I thought that was fantastic.
It visually, it's really interesting. It felt like I went back and watched it a second time before recording here. Like I saw it on Tuesday and then I saw it again on Saturday. And watching it the second time, I'm like, this is really, really reminiscent of the Doctor Strange scene where like the Ancient One like kicks him through the dimensions.
Yeah, it was.
It's like super reminiscent of that. It's this great scene. One of the other things I really like about it is that it just does Mysterio's shtick so well, because Mysterio, like, Peter comes out of that broken and bloodied. Like, he has a limp for the rest of the movie as a result of the injuries sustained in that sequence.
Yeah.
Mysterio never
mostly getting hit by a
well,
train.
yeah, I mean, it was mostly getting hit by a train, but there are other things that happen to him in that sequence, right? Like, but Mysterio never lays a finger on him. It's all self-inflicted by just being lost in this illusion. Because there's like the scene where he falls he jumps to chase after MJ and then like lands head first on a concrete floor. And like it's just the structure of the illusions. He pulls a crane down on himself and barely manages to get out of the way. Like the way the illusions are structured to cause Spider-Man to like essentially just undo himself. Like it's a really, really well put together scene, and it's a lot of fun, and it's like visually spectacular. And it makes the payoff later in the movie when the same thing happens and Peter just dismantles it. Really, really feel satisfying.
Yeah.
You really do get the sense that that Pete has sort of like figured out how to operate his spider sense finally. And like he can now actually dodge bullets. It's just like a fun set of sequences. I really like it a lot.
Yep, I agree. And then another thing that I know a lot of people were pretty happy about, and it's something that has sort of been missing from this version of Peter Parker / Spider-Man is, he's always been this like super smart kid who is this crazy, advanced scientist dude, and he's making everything himself. And you get like, there's a teeny hint of that in the first movie where, it shows him making the web formula. But that's kind of all they ever touched on. Like, they never really got into it. And for good reason, because basically he was given everything, by Tony Stark, right? Like, Iron Man gave him everything.
Yeah, they just sort of, like, reflect on it like, oh, well, you made your own web shooters. That's cool. Here's a new pair.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that was something that kind of, annoyed a lot of people who liked that version of Spider-Man. And to see him after getting his ass kicked, after finding himself in some random jail cell in the Netherlands, to get back on that the Quinjet or whatever jet it was, and get to work on building a new suit, was super cool. And I mean, the parallel, obviously, I mean, they were very sort of in your face about it, as oh, look at him making a suit like Tony made a suit all the way back in Iron Man 1. With the AC/DC rocking.
Yeah.
Although he thinks it's Led Zeppelin, and that's probably
great.
my favorite. That's probably my favorite goof, by the way, is I love Led Zeppelin, and you're just like, oh, God, you son of a bitch. You're the worst. But they have a bunch of little nods there to Tony making his first suit, which I thought which was super nice.
Yeah.
I loved seeing that, and him putting his own spin on the suit and putting the cool little web wings on it, and
that goofy little parachute.
Yeah,
the parachute is great.
The parachute that I can't imagine would actually do anything, but sure.
It would slow your descent. Like,
sure.
What is it? You need 1 square meter of cloth to render your terminal velocity no longer fatal. You'll still cool. break yourself into a million bits, but you can conceivably save your own life with 1 meter of cloth. Plus, he wasn't using it to land, right? He used it to transition to a wingsuit. So all it needed to do was slow him down enough that he wouldn't pancake on the Thames, and he'd be all right.
Were you a tiny bit sad that Edith wasn't voiced by Robert Downey Jr.?
A little bit, but not so much that I was profoundly bothered by it. Sorry. Just going back to your comment about like him making the suit. The one thing that I did really appreciate in this one, he ran out of webs.
Oh yeah.
He got to a point where he was like, no webs. They finally did it. He ran out of webs.
I mean, I have always been I don't know. I guess I've always been a fan of the Spider-Man who just that's just part of his body now. I've always found the idea of the web shooter just kind of exists as a way to screw him over at some point by running out of webs.
It is 100% right? That. It is the like awkward, oh no, my gun is empty and I need to reload at an awkward time. Like it is exactly what it is. It's a like little storytelling gimmick to raise the stakes of a scene.
Which makes complete sense, but and the reason that I've always liked the version of Spider-Man who has the web as part of himself is because it's just like when you think of a spider, that's like kind of the first thing you think about is their ability to spin a web.
Yes.
And that's built into their body. And of course, if you were bitten by a radioactive spider and you get spider powers, then it would stand to reason that you would get webbing.
Fair enough.
That's why I always have preferred the Spider-Man with the webs built in rather than the web shooters. That being said, I do love the idea of a Spider-Man that can build his own web shooters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, seeing that thing being like, wait, it's just like, you know, waking up one morning being like, wait. I got I got super strength and I can climb up walls and I've got a spider sense, which I don't actually know if that's a thing spiders have, but whatever. Sure, you get spider sense, but I didn't get the webbing. Okay, fine. I'll just do it myself.
Yeah.
Screw you, universe.
Yeah.
I'll do it myself.
Speaking of the web and that aspect of Spider-Man's powers, I want to talk for a moment about how good the web slinging was in this. Not the swinging, because there's the web swinging scene at the end, and that's fine. But the scene in Venice where he's trying to hold the tower together or reattaching the facade of the building, and he leaps through a window, knocks out 4 webs, swings back out through another window and wraps the building in webs before jumping back in to pull it the actual choreography of the actions that he's making in space are just super cool. It was just one little thing that I picked up on in this movie where the last time I really felt like they captured the essence of what I would think Spider-Man would move was Spider-Man 2, where he again had a couple of really good sort of web shooty action, well choreographed action scenes that felt like the physics were good, particularly around the subway scene in Spider-Man 2 when he's sticking to the side of the subway and trying to slow it down and using his webs, but keep constantly getting knocked off the subway by Doc Ock, and having to sort of pull himself back on or being dragged behind it and having to use his webs to sort of navigate around cars. That was a really great feeling for 2002 or 2003. Really solid feeling use of that sort of web action, and I felt like this one really, really captured that again for a more modern conception of Spider-Man. So I was really pleased with that. I thought it was just super cool.
I agree. It did look super cool, yeah. And I guess we're not there yet, so I'll have to wait until after the talk about the. All right,
but yeah, just the way they had choreographed it made it feel like there was a distinct transition between the Spider-Man of this movie and the Spider-Man of the previous, of Spider-Man Homecoming, where he just looked like he was moving in a way that was much more confident in his powers, and sort of much more at home with what he can do. And so it just felt like he had sort of matured as a superhero between that film and this one, because he was doing more showy, extravagant is the wrong word, but more complex movements, and more dynamic movements. And I just thought that was neat. It sort of it aided the character a bit for me, in addition to just looking cool.
Fair enough. Do you have any gripes with this one?
Gripes.
Do you have any issues with it?
Gripes.
Anything that didn't? I mean, apparently not.
I loved it. I came out of the movie similarly, just grinning ear to ear.
I mean, this movie had, I would say, I honestly can't think. I mean, other than Endgame following up Infinity War, I can't really think of another movie in the series that would have had to do quite what this movie was sort of expected from it. You know, to come in after Endgame and be that post Endgame movie. You need to pick up the baton and keep going forward, but while still kind of hanging back. You know, this movie more or less sort of, acts as the denouement of
good word.
Sorry?
Good word.
Isn't it a good word? I
That
love
was on
that
your
word.
word of the day calendar.
It's the one word I remember from high school. It's
It means epilogue.
Yes, it means epilogue. It's I can see why Kevin Feige came out and said this is the film that wraps up phase 4.
Yes.
Like it's really easy. Phase 3. It would have been really easy to say, of course, it all ends on Endgame, but no, it doesn't, because you need that breathing time, and you gave it to the movie that holds the character that is clearly, as you just said earlier, gonna take this entire universe forward. Whether Peter Parker and Spider-Man, whether he wants to replace Tony Stark or not, at least from our perspective, that's what he's going to be doing.
Yeah.
And I thought it balanced itself incredibly well. Like, I looked at it as if they had just focused entirely on coming off of Endgame, I think it would have been a really interesting movie. And you would have probably learned a lot about some of the characters, but as a movie that obviously couldn't do that and needed to have one foot in the door towards the future, I thought it did a phenomenal job of balancing this thing where you can't ignore what happened, but at the same time, we need to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, like, I can't imagine, I think I'm more impressed with this movie's ability to do that than I was with Endgame's ability to follow up Infinity War and close that storyline the way it did. Because at the end of the day, all they needed to do was just beat the bad guy and win. And they got there in an incredible way, and everybody loved it, including myself. But I feel like this had a much tighter rope to walk, and it did it unbelievably well.
Yeah,
so,
I completely agree. It was the perfect little palate cleanse at the end, and it gave, like, it brought closure to Peter's story so far, but it made it clear that, like, the closure to Peter's story so far is really just Act 1 of Peter's story.
Yes.
And so it leaves the universe in a place where it's like, all right, all these things have come before, all these things have happened, but now we're ready to move forward. And like, that was exactly what it needed. It was great. It was like Endgame was paying off everything they had built before, and this one was the transition point into the next phase. In fact, one of my favorite lines in the movie, it's not a like a goof, it's just a line, is from, like, right at the very opening, where, like, Betty is doing the like announcements broadcast, and she's like, and now we are ready to move on with the next phase of our lives. I was like, oh, you chose that word on purpose.
Yeah, I remember that. That was very good. Yeah, in terms of goofs, the AC/DC Led Zeppelin thing made me laugh harder than I think anything else in that film. God, it didn't. What else was there?
Okay,
I'm trying to remember.
So there is a very clear best goof in the movie, in my opinion.
Okay,
and it is Peter lands in Berlin, and he's still wearing the black costume, and he drops off the roof onto the sidewalk, and there's a woman walking by him, and he's like, can you tell me how to get to Europol? And she just goes, knocked monkey, and runs.
Yeah, that's right.
That is the best joke in the movie, bar none. I was, like, rolling in my seat. I was just dying. That joke is just chef's kiss. It's so good. I think my second favorite joke is from right at the beginning when the marching band blips back in the middle of the basketball game.
Yeah, that one was really good.
There's the back-to-back of, like, half of the marching band just dusting in the middle of this, like, ceremony they're doing, and then it cuts to them blipping back in, and between the two of them I was just like, oh my god, like, covering my mouth in shock over that scene, because it's just, like, the timing on it is perfect. That whole opening broadcast with like "I will always love you" and the junky like video that they've edited together, the candles with the Getty Images logo across.
Yeah,
it.
okay, I totally forgot about the candles with the Getty.
Oh,
the
man.
watermark.
And
the watermark Getty image was good.
The sad air horn sound and the like, all right, tigers. Roar!
Yeah.
Oh man, that whole sequence is just killer. Like there's so many good jokes in this movie. It's really, really funny. As a man of science, witches. And basically, like one of my favorite things about this particular conception of Peter as well, and also MJ, but just Peter and how he interacts with everybody. He's so awkward. And he gets knocked off his footing so easily that it is just always a source of fun. It's one of the things that makes the dynamic between him and MJ in this so enjoyable. This and Homecoming is she just like knocks him off his footing constantly. They're like, you look pretty, therefore I have value.
Yes.
That's not what I meant. I'm pulling you, like I'm kidding you. You look pretty too. And the whole like just everybody, that the point where he's like trying to stop the drone from killing the dude on the bus, and he like Flash grabs the glasses from him and he like KOs him and grabs the glasses back and is like, Edith, it's just telling Edith, it's like, Edith, I want you to cancel the target. At which point, like, the girl, the seat behind Flash is like, did you just punch Flash? And he says, no. And Edith is like, all right, not canceling. Like, he just constantly loses focus of, like, whatever the super important thing he's focused on, something will, like, knock him off his footing, and he'll briefly be distracted and make the situation way worse for himself. It's never not fun. It's always entertaining. And it plays to the idea that they're kind of going the route of the Parker Luck in this one. And it looks like they're sort of going to continue to drive down that route where like Peter is just an insanely unlucky person. And yes. 9 times out of 10, it's his own, like he is his own worst enemy. And I love how they are incorporating that into his character in these movies. And I always find it entertaining.
I agree. Yeah, no, I am super happy with how this film turned out. And I cannot wait to go see it again, which I plan to do hopefully sometime this week.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I mean, we've already been talking for an hour. And I have a feeling we're going to talk a lot more.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know, right? So, hey, thanks everybody for hanging out and listening to us ramble about yet another one of these films. You keep watching and listening, and we'll keep doing them. Couldn't do it without your support over at patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. That is where you can support all of the things that we do here at Loading Ready Run. And then Matt does his own thing over on the Twitches where he streams every Sunday. Currently he's playing some dumb Final Fantasy game.
I am nearly finished Final Fantasy 9. That's where I'm at. I'm probably 1, maybe 2 streams away from the end of Final Fantasy 9.
Is that the dumb one that you like that nobody else likes?
If by the dumb one that nobody else that I like that everybody else likes, you mean one of the most fondly remembered games on the PlayStation 1, then yes.
Is 8 the bad one?
8 is the, like, exceptionally bad one, but Jordan will fight us both for having said that out loud.
Oh, but you don't like 8?
No, it's got gun swords. It's dumb.
All right, okay. I can never remember, man. There's too many of these games that I haven't played.
I'm going to get hate mail for that.
I gave up. Anyways, twitch.tv/Wiggins.
Twitch.tv/Wiggins. And if you tune in for the next episode, you'll see me beat Ozma and the final boss of Final Fantasy 9. That's the goal for next stream.
Oh dang, what are you gonna play after that?
I don't know. Maybe Final Fantasy 8.
You were the damn worst.
You did not cut that F-bomb in time, I'm afraid.
I know.
It came out.
It's garbled enough. It's fine. No, don't even worry about it. You would play Final Fantasy VIII after playing Final Fantasy IX.
Dear me.
Uh-oh. I've lost Matt. Attention. Podcast people. Matt has disappeared from this channel. I am concerned. He's back.
So here's a funny story.
Uh-huh.
It turns out that if you don't interact with Discord for an hour, and you set your mic sensitivity to 0 so that it is always open.
Yep.
It'll
kick you.
Automatically moves you to the AFK channel.
AFK channel?
Yeah.
Well, today we learned.
Yeah, today we learned.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I would say we'll talk to you the next one, but I don't know what the next one is. So we'll let you know.
So we're going to get some hate mail because we were supposed to do a Spider-Verse episode.
We
never did. So maybe we should do that at some point.
Well, I promise that will come out before the next one of the normal of these comes out.
That's a dangerous promise, James.
Nah, we got lots of time.
I know, we got 6 months. That's tons of time to forget to do it.
Exactly. Future James and Matt problem.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We will talk to you again soon. All right. We don't have time. Look, we're going to... The post-credit scenes here are absurd, and we need to talk about them. They sure are. I don't have time to wait around. So, okay, we've got 2 post-credit scenes. We've got the mid-credit, and we've got the post-credit.
Yeah.
And I would argue that the bigger one is the mid-credit.
Yeah.
At least in terms of what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm sure that the post-credit probably has more to talk about overall for the MCU.
Yeah, in terms of the MCU, for sure.
Yeah, but the mid-credit is great. So mid-credit, we come back, and Peter and MJ go on a little swinging date.
Yep.
It was funny. Zendaya was on Colbert last week and talked about how one of the things that she did for this film was obviously they have to get rigged up and do this. And initially, they did a massive 100-foot swing or some nonsense like that.
Mm-hmm.
Her and Tom Holland got wired up, and they did this massive swing. 100 feet, she says. I don't know how true that is, but I assume it was big enough that she's like, oh God, this is terrifying.
Right.
And they didn't use it. They brought them back in, wired them up about 2 feet above ground, brought in some wind machines, and apparently it looked even better than what they did with the terrifying. I love that story. Go watch her on Colbert from last week. It's really super funny. But anyway, so they go on a little swinging date through New York. She's terrified. She's screaming. He's, telling her to relax. It's fun. It's fine. He's got her. They drop her off. He drops her off.
After almost dropping her.
The last
shot of the movie is as they swing behind a building, he basically lets go of her and drops her.
Yeah. And then drops her off, says goodbye, hops up on a light pole, I think, or something like that.
Getting ready to leave.
And up on the screen appears thedailybugle.net.
Oh, not immediately. It's just a newscast.
Is it just a newscast?
Yeah, it's like it's just a normal newscast, and the guy is and like, "Oh, we've got breaking news from London today," as previously unreleased footage of Mysterio, the last moments of Mysterio during the epic Battle for London materialized today, leaked by controversial website thedailybugle.com.
I think it's .net.
Oh, it might even be .net.
Yeah, I'm going off of the Wikipedia page right now. But yeah, we finally get the Daily Bugle.
We do. Into the MCU.
Yeah. And they've done it in the most info-warsy way possible.
Yes, which makes sense because the video game did it, and although it was a podcast in the video game. But that's sort of what he is in the comics now, too. Like, with the fade of newspapers, he's kind of now like a media personality anyhow, so they're just updating it.
But there he is, our friend J. Jonah Jameson, portrayed by J.K. Simmons, which I was unbelievably happy, not shocked in the slightest that they got him back, because of course they would get him back. If anybody could, it would be them.
Yeah, I yelped in the theater.
Yeah.
I believe.
So did I.
I believe that like Andrew was sitting next to me, and he appears, and I literally just shouted in the theater, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, no, it was fantastic. So he comes back, or so he shows up, and he's talking about the menace that is Spider-Man, and that he has footage of some things that went down in London. To which he plays a piece of footage that has clearly been doctored by Beck and his team, that more or less tries to convince people that Spider-Man is the one who is behind the whole thing, that he killed Beck, and that he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
Spider-Man is a bad guy, and you should not like Spider-Man.
He's a menace.
And then they go one step further, and he reveals who Spider-Man is.
Yes. And this movie basically ends on the same exact line
note
as the previous one. As Spidey puts his hands to his head, his eyes go wide, and he goes, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, which is exactly what happened in the first one with Aunt May when she walks in on him in the bedroom and realizes that he's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And oh my god, like that's a lot.
Yeah.
I saw that and I'm like, I was instantly angry because I knew that I'm going to have to wait far too long to see where this goes.
Yeah.
Like, I need to know what this what does this mean? Like, I so badly want to see what this means. I also so badly hope that they get J.K. Simmons in a more beefier role for the next one.
Yes.
And he's not just used in this one little, stinger, which, I mean, even if that is it, that's good enough and really fun, but I'd love to see him come back.
Yeah, me too. I would love to see him get to actually be in the next one.
Yeah.
My hope, of course, is that he actually is, like, in the next one heavily. I find the dynamic of Peter, like, being the people's hero to a certain extent, but not having the police and, like, JJ on his side. That dynamic of where, like, there's a tension between how different people react to him and regard him, to be an interesting and kind of integral aspect of his character. I do think it'll be especially interesting if they continue to sort of develop him as an Avenger, where, like, the police and the media think he's, like, have taken it as written that he's the bad guy, and, like, SHIELD, or whatever Nick Fury's new organization is, like, they know the truth, but they can't do anything with it. So he's basically still allowed to operate basically at his own discretion, because he's got friends in high places, and he's never actually going to get in trouble for it. But like, they can't tell the police that, and like, so his reputation just constantly goes in the junker, because, like, JJ is constantly fabricating news to make him out to be the bad guy, which is classic J. Jonah Jameson. And the, like, just the way the city then sort of interprets that and reacts to it, will be, like, that's an interesting dynamic, and it's interesting also because they haven't really done it that much in the movies. Spider-Man 1 had a little bit of that, and, like, Spider-Man 2 had JJ hating him, but the city mostly, like, the people in both movies, in fact all three of the Raimi movies, basically liked Spider-Man, right? Like, he was the people's hero. You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. And then in the Andrew Garfield movies, like, by Amazing Spider-Man 2, New York was basically in love with him, and there's, like, the scene of him working with the New York Fire Department to douse Electro and so on. Like, there wasn't really a, like, negative perception of Spider-Man in those movies at all. So it's actually, like, within the context of the movies, it's not it's not a stale approach to the character.
No, not at all. I'm super excited to see where it goes.
Like, I've seen some comments where it's like, oh yeah, this is the least interesting thing to do with Spider-Man, and like, it's so played out, but it's not really in the movies. It is in terms of like people's concept of the character, but it's not really been done in the movies that much at all. So like we'll see where they go with it. But I'm much more interested in the idea of like if they do carry on down this way, that like the media is hammering him, and so he ends up in the position of like being the hero, but he can't get any glory. Like he just cannot get any glory.
Right.
So he just has to do it because it's the right thing to do. And he knows that he's doing the right thing, and he has the right friends to let him do it without really bearing the repercussions of his lost reputation. But the people still sort of back him. That's fun and interesting, and it plays well into like what happens when there is an Avengers team that has to rally behind this guy who everybody believes is a murderer.
Right. So, I mean, I just quickly looked it up because I've seen some interviews with Kevin Feige, and this one is from Fandango, who asked, the mid-credit scene in this film were pretty significant. Should we assume that Peter's reveal will be the major storyline moving forward for Spider-Man? And to which he says, I think so. Much like the end of Iron Man saying, okay, the rules have changed, which now means we've got, or we're going to have to do something completely different next time. The how and when and the specifics can change and evolve, but setting yourself up for something that has never been done before. At the end of Iron Man, it was a hero publicly outing himself so that in the next movies, all subsequent movies, we couldn't fall back on the secret identity trope, which had been a part of Iron Man's story for decades in the comic. And now people know Peter's identity. People now think he's a villain. Mysterio plays one last trick on him and succeeds. So that means everything's different. Where it goes, we'll see. But it's exciting that once again sets us up for a Peter Parker story that has never been done on film before.
Mm-hmm. So tune in for Spider-Man 3, One More Day.
Yeah, or Home Again, Home Again. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm pretty excited. I guess like one thing that I know, you know, a lot of fan theories are flying about that maybe this sort of end credit scene meant that Mysterio isn't really dead, which I don't know one way or the other. I don't really have a super strong opinion. I think it would be kind of cool if he wasn't, because obviously that lends it himself to a Sinister Six thing down the road, which obviously everybody would love to see. But more than that, I would love to see Jake Gyllenhaal back, because I think he was fantastic, and I would hate to see him relegated to just the one movie villain and done.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly, truly believe that, like, he is probably one of the best villains that they've done.
Yeah.
Certainly one-shot villains that they've done. You know, they've had, you know, obviously Thanos and Loki and stuff like that, but these guys have had several movies to sort of, you know, grow over. But the Jake Gyllenhaal Mysterio just blew me away, and I would love to see you know, that come back in maybe some sort of Sinister Six thing down the road, way down the road. Because I know that the director of Spider-Man has talked about how he'd love to have Kraven in a future movie. Ooh. and obviously we've already had Mysterio and
man, Kraven in the next movie
Vulture
could be actually really good.
Yeah,
particularly like with the reveal of his identity, like just spending the next movie being hunted by Kraven and trying to keep his like all of his friends and family out of the way. That could be like, that could make for a really compelling film.
Yep, it could be really cool. So okay, so that was the mid-credit, which is super cool. Mm-hmm. And then there is the post-credit, which is obviously the huge reveal that for the entire movie, and we didn't actually talk about this in the main podcast because I was going to leave it until we talked about it here, that both Nick Fury and Maria Hill were not actually Nick Fury and Maria Hill for the entirety of that movie. They were, in fact, Skrulls.
Yes, they were Talos and his wife.
Specifically, Talos and his wife from Captain Marvel. I mean, I knew something was going on throughout the movie, because something for the entire movie seemed entirely off with Sam Jackson and Nick Fury's character.
Yeah.
I don't know if that certainly wasn't my guess, but it definitely sort of proved how good Sam Jackson is.
Yeah.
Like he managed to play Nick Fury so well and just off ever so slightly.
Somehow even more of a hard ass.
Yeah, that you can kind of think that maybe something's going on, but they never really. I mean, the secret in this movie was they never really give you an opportunity to sit around and think about it for too long.
Yeah,
like Nick Fury's off screen and something else is happening, and okay, now your attention is on this. But definitely after the movie, I was like, wait, yeah, it was all the signs were there. Especially when Peter Parker is rattling off names of heroes who could be better, and he says Captain Marvel, which apparently is the first time that name has ever been spoken in the MCU, which is kind of funny. And he says,
"Don't invoke her name.
Don't invoke her name."
Yeah,
that's not something that Nick Fury would say.
Yeah, he says, "Don't invoke her name." Sorry, carry
that's
on.
something Talos would say.
There's also a throwaway line when it cuts back to Fury and Maria Hill just like walking through Europol headquarters, and he's like, "I thought the existence of Kree sleeper cells was a secret or like was classified or some such thing."
Yeah.
And like you go back and you watch it and you sort of piece together that like, oh, okay, they were dropping hints about this all the way through the movie. Which is like, it's just cute. I like that they gave plausible deniability as well for why he was off. When he comes back, he's like, I've been gone for 5 years, and
yes,
when I left, I knew everything, and now I come back and I don't know anything, and I've got a high school student dodging my calls. Like it actually like sets him up in such a way that his backstory gives him a reason to be not quite up to speed, and to be like a little more easily deceived by Beck, because you would think that the actual Nick Fury wouldn't be taken in. So like it was cute. I liked it a lot. I liked that reveal. It was very good. Also, the conversation between him and his wife was hilarious.
Yes.
Like, you gotta tell him.
Yeah. No, that was great. And then, I mean, the bigger reveal being that Fury is off-world.
Yes.
He's on a Skrull ship of some sort.
Yep.
And who the hell knows what that means?
Yeah. I mean, we're going back to the
mean a million
cosmos at some
things.
point, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of I read a lot of Reddit and watch a lot of movies and see all these people who have their theories, and the big one for everybody right now is it feels very Secret War.
Yes.
Is what we could be building towards next as sort of the big main thing, a la, Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah.
We're heading towards the Secret Wars, which I mean, that sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I would be okay with that storyline. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
It's going to be very it'll be interesting to see how they do it, because they've turned the entire dynamic of the Secret War or Secret Invasion, I guess, is what I'm thinking of. They've turned the entire dynamic of Secret Invasion on its head.
Yes.
Where we've got Kree sleeper cells, and the Skrulls are the good guys ostensibly and get along with humans, but apparently they've been living in how long has Talos been back on Earth? Because the last time we saw Talos on Earth, he was headed for a new Kree homeworld 30 years ago. Well, why is he here? What is going on? So there's lots of big questions opened up. But yeah, I mean, we know there's lots of interesting things coming down the pipe in terms of just the movies that we know are in production, because we know there are a bunch of movies in production. And so how they all tie together into what they are hinting at here is yet unknown, and it is fascinating to me. I'm really looking forward to finding out what's on the slate.
Yeah, and again, by the time this comes out, we'll probably be about a week and a half, week and a bit away. Be sure to keep your eye out on the 20th of July at around 5 o'clock Pacific when Marvel takes the stage at Comic-Con.
I look forward to seeing all the screenshots on Twitter.
Yeah, like I'm hoping that it's not like an hour-long victory lap, and then, by the way, we're making Black Widow, and here's a scene or something. I don't know. I hope there's something a little bit more substantial than that. I don't necessarily think that we're gonna get, the Infinity Saga timeline that we got, 4 or 5 years ago or whatever it is now.
No,
but a hint of things to come, and maybe some news on things that we don't quite 100% know about. It's like, yes, we know that Black Widow is currently in production, and as far as we know, the only Marvel movie that is currently actually filming.
As far as we know, it's the only one filming, but we do know that they're casting and hiring directors for other films, right? Black Widow is filming.
There's Eternals.
Eternals is casting.
There's Black Panther 2, there's Doctor Strange 2, there's
probably a Captain Marvel 2.
Certainly Captain Marvel 2, there's Guardians 3.
Yes. There's Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu.
Yeah, so Shang-Chi is interesting. Currently, as far as we know, Eternals and Shang-Chi are kind of the only two that are new. Yes. Right? And I guess I would love to hear about some more new stuff. Yeah. Because as much as I'm excited, my definite big concern right now is that it seems almost entirely likely that the next Marvel movie we're going to get is a Black Widow movie, which is great, and I'm looking forward to it, but man, that's a movie that we should have gotten 5 years ago and not now. Yeah, or 10. And not now, because now that means the next movie that we're going to get is going to be it's not only going to be another movie similar to Captain Marvel, like we got just before Endgame, but it's not even going to be able to sort of tie into present day because Black Widow is dead.
Well,
right?
I'm going to give them a little more credit than that.
I'm sure that there's going to be some things that tie into it, but the main character whose the movie is about
is no longer with us.
Yeah. Which kind of sucks, because it's just like, I want to keep, I was talking just a short while ago about how unbelievably well Spider-Man did a great job of, keeping us, cognizant of what just happened, but also making sure that we're aware that the future is coming. And then the next movie that we get is
a step backwards.
Yeah,
I know exactly
what you mean. Which feels kind of bad. Yeah. And it's just like, ugh, this sucks. Like, this is, I'm sure that they're all, publicly, I'm sure Kevin Feige would never say, no, I'm happy we're making a Black Widow movie now. But secretly, he's been like, man, we should have made this fucking movie 7 years ago.
I mean, by all accounts, he was stumping for it. This movie, the Black Widow movie, was one of the reasons he wanted to leave Marvel. And he basically told them it was Ike Perlmutter or me, pick one.
Right.
Because Ike wouldn't let him do movies led by female heroes. And that he just was stifled under that leadership, and he's like, listen, you need to either let me do this and make you hojillions of dollars, or I'm out and you can have your backwards universe. And they shuffled Ike off to the TV universe and let Kevin Feige do his thing. But at that point, it did still take several years to ramp up the Captain Marvel, because at that point they had already laid out what their roadmap was for the next several years. So we know this has been sort of at least shopping around the studio now for the better part of half the life of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it's just a real shame that it took them this long to get there. That said, I cannot imagine a way they do this film. They cannot take this step back in time. Without,
and I'm sure they don't, but
using it to launch the next phase, right? Whatever the story of that movie has got to be something that sets off the events that we come back to afterwards. I don't see how they can do it any other way.
I've got somebody's layout here. Black Widow 2020, Eternals 2020, Black Panther 2 2021, Doctor Strange 2 2021, The Wasp 2021, third Spider-Man film 2021. He's given us 4 movies because we're only getting 2 in 2020. I like this guy. Shang-Chi 2022, Captain Marvel 2 2022, Guardians 3 2022, Thor 4, interesting, 2023, Fantastic Four 2023.
Doubtful.
And then Avengers 5 2023.
Yeah. I
We'll
doubt
see.
it. Black Widow is. I'm calling it now.
Me in
All right,
5 years.
I'm putting a pin in this right now. Black Widow is going to discover something to do with an X gene.
With which? Sorry.
An X gene.
Yeah.
That is going to be. There's going to be something in there to tease the return of the X-Men to the MCU.
One theory that I super love is they talk a lot about how the snap released an incredible amount of radiation.
Yes.
And the fact that there's been 3 snaps on Earth now.
Yeah.
Within 5 years.
Yeah.
Is what triggers
the appearance
the
of the mutation. Yeah.
I love that idea. Like, it's simple and it's like right there, but sometimes that's okay. And I would be super excited if that's how they brought in the X-Men. Now, whether or not, we get any X-Men films standalone anytime soon, who knows? I could see them starting to. Yeah, I doubt it too, but I could see them starting to bring in maybe like a character or 2 here or there.
Yeah, or just tease elements of it, right? Like, the thing they are building to is the return of the X-Men. And that it still ends up being like 5 years before they actually do a movie that has X-Men in it. But like each movie has a hint. Sort of like, they drop a hint, sort of the Thanos-sized like bits and pieces. Oh, Thanos is coming, kind of thing in every movie between now and when they finally do like AVX or whatever it is they decide they want to do to bring the X-Men back.
Right.
But that could be fun. But I imagine that they have to be using Black Widow to set up the next thing, because otherwise it's just like, it completely doesn't fit.
Yeah, and look, I'm sure that there is going to be just that. Like, it would make zero. Like, they're smart people. They've made 22, 23. How many? What are we at now?
Too many.
Was this
a lot of them?
Was this a lot of them? And they're all great, and they all work together. And it makes no sense for them to be like, well, start of Phase 4. Let's do a standalone movie that has no bearing on anything whatsoever,
except the stuff we just finished.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like it doesn't make sense.
So I'm sure they'll figure it out. They're smart people.
Yeah.
All right. We have talked for a very long time now, and I figured we would because it was a very good movie. But it is time to say goodbye.
I didn't even take 40 minutes on my summary this time.
Yeah, I don't think we can do that anymore.
Well, I only took 15.
Yeah, it was very good.
I tried.
I could have probably done it in 3.
Probably, but whatever. It's part of the shtick now.
It is part of the shtick now. All right. Thank you, Matt, for hanging out and talking Marvel with me.
Thank you for having me.
We'll do this again.
In
I don't know.
6 months.
Is it 6 months?
It is. It's not until
July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. Nope, it's 10.
What? That's even longer than the last one.
Yeah, we're 10 months away from May 2020, and that is, I believe, when the next is slated.
All right, so we're doing a Mission Impossible watch along, right? In the meantime,
and not only is it 10 months away, we only get 2 of these next year. So we have to wait 10 months, and next year we only get 2. It's a good thing that the planet is very stable and everything is going well, and I'm not terrified. All right.
Yeah. So how, Fast and the Furious watch along? Mission Impossible?
God. Yeah, Hobbs and Shaw, man.
I know.
That's soon.
I know. We got to knock out 9 episodes between now and then.
Stupid.
It looks so good. I don't know what you're talking about. It looks amazing. Movie of the year.
Oh, it looks amazing. It's going to be sweet. I'm excited.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just like talking movies with you, James, and I would like to talk about more movies, and I don't want to wait 10 months to do it again.
All right, we'll figure something out. Calm down.
I like this. This is fun.
Okay, fine. We'll figure it out. We'll think of another.
Yeah. We need.
I mean, we could just do I don't know about a week, maybe like an every other week movie podcast.
Ooh.
I don't think I'd want to do a weekly podcast, but I could do like an every other week podcast So, like, are you thinking? Oh, we're just planning this live now.
Apparently
by the way.
so. Yeah.
Do you, are you, so you, in your opinion, would you go like we go see new movies or are we watching old movies?
I don't know. I do kind of hew to your previous comments to me that like one of the reasons that this podcast is as much fun to do as it is because we both just unashamedly love all these movies, and therefore it's tough to like.
Yeah,
like
that's the
it's
problem
not negative ever, right? Like we sometimes have gripes, but it's like, oh, we love these movies. They're just every single one of them entertains us, and we always have a smile on our face. So it's a matter of finding a franchise or something that we have a similar. Like,
I'm not gonna lie, there is nothing in this world I love more than these movies.
Well, you don't have to love it more. You just have to like. We just have to enjoy.
I honestly like. I would actually put the most recent 3 Mission Impossibles at probably close to the same level. Not the same level.
No.
Not quite. But I do love those movies.
They're good movies.
I'm very excited for the new ones.
Yeah. And this is where I've been bandying the idea about trying to initiate a Bond podcast with Graham in time for the Bond 25. Because that would be great. Because again, we both love all of those movies. But
apparently he slept with something like 63 women in all those movies.
That doesn't surprise me.
I read some tweet the other day that he's like 63 women and something else, and there's like a 90% chance he has chlamydia or something like that. It's just like
okay.
This is an excellent tweet.
All right, that is a good tweet. I like it.
Yeah.
Anyhow, yeah. Oh, you know what we didn't do?
What didn't we?
We didn't rank it.
Oh, we didn't rank it. You were right. Holy moly. I don't even know.
We're going to get letters from the people who haven't stuck around through this, just like the muffled catawampus for the last half hour.
I don't even know how to rank these movies anymore.
I know where it goes for me.
Can't we just start over again now? I feel like this is number 1.
No, because this is
in
the
last
new
series.
This is the last one.
I know. It's so hard.
Plus, I'm going to make you rank the new ones in this same list. Anyhow, but I know where mine goes.
I don't even know where the list is anymore. Hold on.
I have it open.
MCU.
I can reshare it with you if you want.
No, it's here somewhere. Hold on. There it is. I found it. All right. So, really, that's where that goes for you?
Yeah, it does.
All right. So, I mean, this is sort of the fundamental problem with this is that as a standalone film, I think I actually like Homecoming more.
Oh,
but
interesting.
It didn't have to do anywhere near as much legwork, right?
Right.
Like all Homecoming needed to do was just be a Spider-Man movie, and it did a really good job of doing that. If all Spider-Man Far From Home needed to be was a Spider-Man movie, and all we needed to watch was just him going at it with Mysterio, I think I probably would have liked Far From Home more. But the problem is that that's not how you rank these movies. And as a whole, Far From Home is a better film because of what it's able to achieve. Therefore, I would like to put this one spot lower than where you have yours.
Okay.
Which is just below Civil War and just above Iron Man.
Whew. That's high praise, actually, from you. So that makes it your number 6th.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, that makes it number 6 for you. Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so for my part, I actually think this is a better Spider-Man movie than Homecoming was. Even just if you scrap all the universe tie-ins where you can, and just take the element of Spider-Man versus Mysterio and the characterization of Peter and the just trying to balance his superhero life and the girl that he likes and wanting to tell her that. All of those elements come together in this movie way better for me than they did in Homecoming. I think Peter's character is stronger in this. I think the action is better. I think I think the villain is right on par, actually. I think Toombs in Homecoming was great, and I think Mysterio was great as well. But
I mean, they're very similar too, which is interesting.
Yeah.
They're two men who got kind of screwed. I mean, Mysterio a little bit more so, less inadvertently, but both men, slighted by Tony Stark, which is kind of an interesting
and now
aspect
Peter...
of the films that we didn't actually talk about, is that both movies hinged on this idea that these two men had been done wrong by, who is arguably Peter Parker's, father figure at this point.
Right.
Had it not been for Tony Stark, Spider-Man maybe wouldn't had to have fought these two men.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
I got this joke from the Loading Rerun Discord actually earlier today, but the joke is Peter Parker putting the E in dad since 1967 or whatever. It's like it's very dangerous to be Peter's father figure.
Yeah. I wouldn't choose that.
Yeah. But anyhow, so one of the things that's interesting to me is when I saw Homecoming, I was very excited to see it, and I actually left it feeling kind of muted. It was good and I enjoyed it, but it's reflected in the fact that it's like my 12th favorite MCU movie. That it's good, but it's not great. It's not the best Spider-Man movie. It is not it did what it needed to do. Interestingly, my perspectives on this movie and the other movie are a little weird, because I felt that Spider-Man Homecoming leaned too heavy on the MCU and didn't let Spider-Man stand alone. Whereas this one leans even harder into the MCU, and I feel like it's a better Spider-Man film. Which is fascinating.
He's also forced to stand alone in this one, right?
Yeah.
Which is an interesting, comparison, because you're right. It was sort of jammed down our eyes that yes, Iron Man is basically watching over you. You've got the training wheel program. He's there to scold you when you do something wrong. And then it's just the complete opposite with Far From Home, where now he is essentially all by himself.
Yeah.
Which I thought was neat.
And sort of having to learn how to do the superhero thing. So anyhow,
they play off each other incredibly well.
Yes.
Honestly.
Yeah.
I think depending on how they, how and where they take the third one of these, I think it easily has the possibility of being the strongest trilogy within this series of films.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I agree with that. So anyhow, for me, this ranks one higher than it does for you. I put it, so Spider-Man Homecoming came in at 12. I put this in considerably higher than that because I liked it a lot more than I liked Homecoming. I came out of it a lot happier than I came out of Homecoming. So it sits above Thor Ragnarok, Iron Man, Age of Ultron, Captain Marvel, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Black Panther in my number 5 slot, behind Avengers, Civil War, Winter Soldier, and Infinity War. Although I think our lists, I don't think we ever did put Endgame on our lists.
Oh yeah, Endgame isn't here on this list.
I don't know. I believe we both put it right at the top when we saw it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's just it's still probably my favorite movie, just with what it's able to do. Honestly, you kind of have to almost look at Infinity War and Endgame as kind of one big movie.
Yeah.
In that sense. Although I will say that what you have just done is put... Oh, no, never mind. You and me both have Black Panther rated number 1 first movie.
Black Panther is the best first movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Mine is 4 on the list. Yours is 7th on the list. But they're still both number 1 first movie on both of our lists, even though there's a fairly big difference between where they land on our lists.
I just think they're more better sequels, I guess. But I mean, The Avengers is really
I suppose that's fair
for me.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really count because it's a sequel to the 5 films that came before it.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though it's the first in its specific franchise. But yeah, Black Panther is the best of the solo outings. 100%. I stand by that.
Agreed. All right. let's say goodbye because this is a very long podcast.
Yeah, I'm gonna get put into AFK mode again soon.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. We will see you again at some point somewhere down the line.
Hopefully not too long.
Hopefully not too long. And until then, I don't know, start watching all these movies from the start again, because why wouldn't you? And go listen to the podcast as well.
Yeah.
Views. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.